Okay, well, happy holidays. Welcome everybody. We'll just get started. And Tamara, if you wouldn't mind letting people in as I'm doing our little intro. We have Tamara Lechner, who is a Flourishing at Work member and also runs the Flourishing AI group, and here to talk about AI. I'm going to read her bio real quick. Tamara is a people person in the AI world. She chairs the AI for Human Flourishing interest group as part of our broader Human Flourishing program network, and co-chairs Tamara, you might need to help me with this, the IEE.
The IEEE AI Systems Flourishing Group.
Okay. You can explain to us what that is too. Working group expanding global AI standards for human well-being. Tamara is also co-founder of First Phone License, an app where kids unlock phone privileges by proving they are ready using a developmental readiness index. I love that. Tamara's work signals a new era, one in which AI is built to serve our highest human values, and flourishing becomes the metric that matters most. So she was recently in Italy at one of the WOHASU Technology for Good summits or events. So I'm eager to hear about that too. So welcome, Tamara. I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. While I am getting my screen up for sharing, I just want to remind everybody to give yourself the real gift of presence. And if possible, please close down anything you don't need to be looking at right now so that we can go on a little journey together and talk about technology helping humanity be their best, which is certainly not something we always hear about. So, checking in first of all, are you seeing my screen? Excellent. Thank you. I love when we begin one of these that the first thing we do is help one another. So, if there's something good about being on Zoom, that is it. So, as Karen said, I consider myself a people person in the technology world. And longer than that, I've been a flourishing activist. So, my goal today is leaving you a little more confident about shaping the way you use AI, either personally or as a leader, or maybe even with your clients, versus letting AI shape your world with things like recommending your music for you, choosing your books for you, finishing your sentence for you, or giving you a belief that the world around you is maybe a little less friendly and less happy than it is. So I encourage you to treat this as your meeting, not my presentation, which means if you have a question, feel free to raise a hand or unmute yourself. We are going to endeavor to have some breakout time because I know the social conversations about this are super important. Let us look at what we're going to do together. So, I'm going to spotlight the work that my AI for Human Flourishing group has been doing, and I can see Wendy Lord is here. Wendy, give a wave. Wendy has been working with us from the beginning. And we're a little bit different than this group. So if you've been attending Karen's group, she does this beautiful knowledge and networking where you learn something from somebody who has a deep interest and maybe you talk about it a little bit. Our group does that in a knowledge and networking format. But we also have written a paper, we've spoken at conferences together, and we just expanded to the Asia Pacific where we now have a second time zone hub. So we're really working on creating momentum around the language we choose when we talk about technology together. So that's our Harvard-based group. But I'm also going to spotlight some things that happened at WOHASU Tech for Good Summit. And so I'm wondering, show of hands, how many of you have attended a WOHASU event in the past? I know Karen has. Isabel, you have too. Great. Yeah, so this was their first tech summit, and I'm going to give you a rundown of what went down there and I think what the key takeaways are from a business sense. I'm also going to talk a little bit about AI and intellectual property. Matthew Leeper is an intellectual property lawyer who works across the United States and Canada. He's based in Dallas. And Carrie O'Shea Gorgon. She is based in the Midwest, and they've really helped me to shape my understanding of what you can collaborate with AI to produce and then patent or copyright or trademark. And so we'll do a little bit about that, and then I'm going to leave you with three questions that I think are kind of unlocking questions about AI choices that you make when you consider adding something to your tech stack. And I'm going to ask Karen, could you monitor the chat so that if questions come up and I don't see them, just throw them my way because I'm going to be busy looking at my screen and trying to present this well. Thank you, Karen.
Absolutely. So Tamara, do you want me to do that throughout or wait till the end?
I think I will trust your judgment on that. If there
Okay.
are questions that can be held, great. But if it seems really timely, feel free to interrupt me. I would rather this be a conversation than a broadcast. And that's one of the things that our AI for Human Flourishing group really works hard on. So this is my absolutely fabulous team. We have been meeting since 2023. And as I said, we've written papers, we've created a framework. And one of the things that we've really worked hard to do is take our work from URL online to IRL in real life. So, one really great story. When I'm looking at this group here, I have Molly, who joins us from Africa. And she and Cheris is in the Midwest, and Cheris was working for Amazon. They actually met and went wedding shopping together. So I love that we've had this group of people globally coming together to talk about technology, but creating real relationships. And that's what I want to keep at the forefront of this conversation, that this is not about technology, it's about humans. So let's start with the common language. We define flourishing a little bit differently because we're often working with an organizational group. So we really think of it as people reaching their full potential through using the behaviors and setting up the conditions that enable optimal performance, fulfillment, and growth. And we remind people that when team members are flourishing, it's going to lead to individual and organizational vitality and success. So, probably nothing new for most of the flourishing people in the room. And when we came together, we decided the first thing we wanted to do was create a framework that would help people understand if AI was net positive in their life, not only net neutral, so not just safe, but actually promoting flourishing. We built this on the 20,000 research papers that we could find on global flourishing. As we dove into what does flourishing mean, we actually came up with 150 different definitions. And so then we wanted to pull these together in a way that was useful. We looked at Tyler's Harvard model, so the flourishing index, what Gallup was doing. We considered Vivek Murthy and what he was recommending to the American public around their health and well-being at work. And then one of our members, Amy Blankson, had previously created a digital wellness index. And so we learned from her mistakes, and we're really lucky to have Amy as part of our group. Um, and so after we boiled the ocean, we came down to these categories. Whoops, I'm missing them out of order. Here we go. We came down to these drivers that encompass what leaders were already talking about with AI. So leaders were talking about protection from harm. They were talking about fair AI, not using biased information or harming one population at the expense of another population, not harming the environment by using too much water. So we knew that people were already thinking about these things, and leaders were talking a lot about productivity. And so these were our access points where we could hook someone that this was a good thing to talk about. But then we added what is the real meat and potatoes of this, which is how can AI improve our relationships and our communication and actually make us better at those rather than detracting from it? How can it help our personal well-being so that when we're at work, we're doing our best while feeling our best? How can it make sure that we feel a sense that our work is meaningful? And how can it help us to grow and develop as a human? The use of this framework was designed to help organizations get kind of a high level overview on how they impact their entire team through the tech stack that they've chosen. And our hope was that when a team was going to bring on a new tool, they would be able to run it through this assessment, which turned out to be about 24 questions. And that would spotlight which drivers were helping and which ones were hindering their ability to flourish. We thought our key users for this framework would be business leaders. But what was surprising to us was that builders of AI products, so those tech founders and product owners, were actually very curious to evaluate how their product stacked up against others and to consider their roadmap for building how they might enhance the way they build to make their products better for humans. So that was incredibly exciting that there was actually interest around that. And I'm going to show you this, but not expect you to read it because I know the print is incredibly tiny, but it will be in the deck that if Karen can send out afterwards. It's a deep dive into how we took that ocean and boiled it, looking at the AI applications, the metrics, and the goals a leader might have and how the AI could contribute to those. I want to go back because I've been saying AI, 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 but I haven't talked about what exactly I mean when I'm saying AI. So this is a very simplistic definition that we've used across our team. Technology that can perform tasks that typically require human intelligence, but that includes narrow AI, which has purpose like specific business tasks, chatbots, inventory management predictions, point of sale fraud detection, email marketing optimization. So all of those things you've probably been using before you were using the word AI to describe them. Then we have machine learning, systems that learn from data. So this is a little more advanced and it's customer purchase pattern analysis, dynamic pricing systems, those credit card fraud detectors, uh, smart email spam filtering. Then we have deep learning, which is more advanced, almost like a neural network. And that's where you're getting customer sentiment analysis, maybe from an exit survey, maybe actually in the waiting room at a medical appointment. You're getting multilingual customer support. You're getting automated bookkeeping. You're getting agentic added in there. And then finally, generative AI, where does it fit in? Because probably that's the thing you're hearing most about. This is that thing that's creating new content. Probably many of you are using things like Copilot, ChatGPT, GitHub, Canva's AI feature for marketing materials. So these things are being built into our everyday. I know Karen and I were talking before this meeting about throwing out any note takers. It's a standard that she and I both have. Those note takers have become very, very common. And so these things are surrounding us, but quite often we're not using them to their full potential, and they can actually be using us by guiding us in ways that we may not have summarized our meeting, things we may have left out. And so those are the existing products. But one of the dangers about AI is we have this imaginary product that was represented in movies like Wall-E, or the character Jarvis in the Iron Man series. And this is a technology that would have capability that matches human level reasoning. Now, we know some of our tech billionaires think they're already there. And the key point about this is this remains theoretical. But as humans, we kind of have this doom and gloom sense that AI is going to turn into robots and it's going to take over our world. And one of the key challenges, if you're implementing AI into your business, is we've seen this again and again in our films and our books. And so we have a natural fear of this technology, which needs to be overcome through mindset priming before you add something to the tech stack. So any questions about the framework that we created? You can find the framework on our website, which is aiforhumanflourishing.com, and there's a tab for framework if you want to take a look at it. Otherwise, I am going to switch gears. The first time that we actually publicly spoke about the framework at a large conference was when Amy Blankson, Ileana Grossa-Buenning, and myself were fortunate to speak at WOHASU. So again, WOHASU has been a global leader for a while in well-being. They offer these very transformative experiences. So if you look at the picture on the left side of my screen, it almost looks AI generated. That is a beautiful school campus where they held this event. This campus is built in a way that the environment works with the humans in the environment. They have a K to 12 school. They have a high school. They have a business school. They have a business accelerator that has actually launched a unicorn. Across this campus, you will hear music played everywhere. You will see robots wandering or rolling around. And everybody is really valuing the opinion, regardless of the age, whether you're kindergarten or whether you're a unicorn, of everyone around them. They're asking great questions and they're thinking big thoughts. So it was a beautiful place to gather. And I think place matters when we are in real life. So Karen Guggenheim, up in the top right corner, founded this in 2016, and she's been doing these happiness summits. But this was her first foray into the technology world. And you can actually see video of all of the presentations online. So if you check out the WOHASU YouTube channel, everything is there. But what I'm going to do is give you a summary of the key points that I think really matter, perhaps to you and in the work you do. So this is my friend, Sandro Formica. He's a wonderful presenter, and he did a beautiful, beautiful presentation really talking about how do AI and humans thrive better together on teams at work. So interestingly, one of the first stats that he shared, and he was working with information predominantly from his own research, but also from the Gallup report that was released in 2024. Sandro reminded us that 15% of people believe they will be without a job in the next 5 years due to AI. I personally think that stat is off. What do you think? I'm curious. Pop in the chat for me. Do you think that sounds right? Do you think that's going to reflect our future in the next 5 years? His next stat was that 12% of workers feel they influence tech adoption at work, but only 80, that's 12%, 88% think they have no control of this technology that is coming into their workplace. And I feel we all know how important a sense of autonomy is. There's a real problem there with that. Next stat was that 71% of employees said they should have more control. So we have these people feeling like they have no control and believing strongly that they should have more of a say in what's happening in their technology day to day. 44% of companies had already started integrating AI, but of those 44%, only 22% had a plan for implementation. So I think you've probably seen examples of this with your clients or in your own life where the boss says, yeah, just buy ChatGPT and start using it. They don't tell them how. They're not collecting data about, does this impact us positively or negatively? Is our work better or worse? They're just really not planning at all, which is so strange in businesses that are usually so clear on what their KPIs and metrics are. And then finally, 3% of Americans believe that AI will be implemented responsibly. Only 3% think the world is going to be okay because of the way AI has been implemented. So today I'm going to arm you with the information you need to impact that and hopefully nudge that 3% to a much higher number by creating ripples of knowledge, ripples of agency, and a really shared common language around the way we want to talk about this AI technology. And I love these questions that Sandro asked. On a gut level, which one sounds more valuable to you? Predictability or imagination? Speed or meaning? Scaling or connection? Being efficient or being irreplaceable? According to Sandro's research, the central action item for organizations is to approach AI not as a change, and definitely not as a change management issue, but instead as a conscious effort toward keeping the human element at the core. So he had 4 suggestions. He suggested that you rewrite the narrative. The mindset had to shift from viewing AI as something to worry about to seeing it as a teammate, which personally I don't like the language teammate because it implies the AI technology has human capacity. I like to call it a tool. It's something that you use to do your work better. Second, he really suggested leveraging essence. And what he meant by that was establishing rules and parameters to ensure that humans remain irreplaceable. So protecting and using things that are uniquely human, like intuition. We don't think in the near future AI is going to be able to check its gut. Empathy. Although AI is being trained to read faces, most of the tools that I've seen to do that aren't doing a great job. Humans struggle, number one, to read faces. Number two, you're reading faces from a human who's probably trying to hide their emotion. So it is so complex. It is not something AI is going to get right soon. And we believe keeping that mostly to humans, with AI maybe as an assistant when we struggle with it, is the better way rather than outsourcing our empathy to technology. Next, syncing mental models. Since human and AI operate differently, for example, AI might define urgency based on all caps in a message, while a human considers also the emotional expression of what's being communicated. So organizations have to clarify what AI is responsible for and what humans are responsible for. And then finally, Sandro suggests using rituals. And I loved this suggestion. Rituals, in his definition, is habits with a purpose. And I thought that was a beautiful little phrase. He suggested they should be deployed as glue to foster collaboration between humans and AI. And then he asked this question: what is the one element of your leadership that you know AI can never replicate, replace, or rewrite? So again, I want you to consider this for a second. If there's something that you don't think you will ever be able to outsource to AI, what would that be? And I'd actually encourage you to pop yours in the chat.
Everyone's thinking.
I can see the typing and I'm happy to pause and wait. Do you have one off the top of your head, Karen, rather than typing it?
I would say something around connection and impacting how people feel.
Yeah.
We've
I don't
got
know that technology's ever made me feel anything.
Yes, right. So we've got a few empathy, being in relation with someone else, human connection, coaching and performance discussions to help employees learn and grow, motivation, leadership skills, feeling, empathy, reading people's feelings, connection, comfort. There's
Yeah.
a theme.
There's definitely a theme, and it's not surprising given who the people in this room are. And one of the slightly unpopular opinions that I hold is that often the technologists who are endeavoring to code empathy are perhaps not the most emotionally intelligent group of humans on the planet. And so I understand why they want to solve that problem, but I'm not sure they're the right ones to be doing it. And I think it's why when you hear about this work, you hear about bringing in philosophers and writers and sociologists and biologists, because we really need a diverse group of people thinking about how we want this technology to behave, not only the people who were drawn to work in the technology space. Which is why, despite not having, I consider myself a high level user of AI technology, but I don't consider myself an AI expert in any way. But I'm still going to bravely put myself out there and have these conversations because I know a little bit more than the average person. And so I'm going to encourage you all to do the same and stop thinking of yourselves as I don't know anything about technology, and instead think about what you know that others don't and how you could share that.
Tamara, there was one comment that seemed resonant. Jeff, if you don't mind me sharing, that he wrote, I'm surprised and a bit concerned at the strong relationship that I have developed with ChatGPT, and several endorsements from others too, that I mean that I'm sure this is a common thing that comes up in this space.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And I think what's interesting, especially in the work that we do with children, And in 2025, the biggest use case of AI, which surprised the builders, was people using it for either a chat or a therapist. We knew there was a human loneliness problem, and technology has tried to solve it. Unfortunately, humans are not better when they are in a sycophantic relationship with a technology. Technology relationships are not difficult. Human relationships are. So, of course, for many people, it feels like a great thing. But there's actually this dopamine rush when you use the technology and it tells you, yep, you're right. And it's designed to do that because most of these technologies are measured with how much time you spend using them. They're not measured if they have a good conversation, if they help you, if you came to them asking for advice on your marriage and you went away with advice that was actually really bad advice and now it's going to blow up your marriage. There's no culpability on behalf of the technology for that. And so, one of the phrases I keep using again and again is how do you take what URL does well and pull it over to IRL? I was talking to a company yesterday called Pebble, and they're doing a great job of this. They've actually built one of the safest and most reliable coaching and therapeutic assistant bots, and they're calling it that for a very specific reason. It's not a therapist. When you're on technology with something that's presenting as a therapist, it is not held to the standards of a regular therapist. If you show ideas of suicidal ideation, it doesn't have to call anybody. It doesn't have to help you, where a human therapist really would. And so we're in a stage where I think this is like when the car was invented, but we didn't have roads, we didn't have stop signs, we didn't have seatbelts. Technology is there right now. It's being allowed to do all kinds of things without very many guardrails. And I think right now, as humans, we need to really critically think about our own guardrails. Do I want a relationship with something that's actually ones and zeros? Or do I want to use this right now as a tool because I don't have someone to talk to, but then take the conversation to a human? And that's one of the checks that I hope to encourage us to put into place. That Jeff, I think it's a great thing that you've pointed out, and it's something we're really seeing. It can be positive, absolutely. I gave my 83-year-old mom an account to a technology called Pi that she can talk to, and Pi is trained in cognitive behavioral therapy. And when my mom is having anxiety and she's in a different time zone than me and it's not the right time for her to call me, she can talk to Pi. She doesn't exclusively talk to Pi, but it saved me a lot of 3 in the morning phone calls in the meantime. And then she'll phone me at 8 a.m. and say, hey, I was talking to that Pi guy, and this is what it said. And now I feel better. I did some breathing. So it is a balance, and we have yet to figure it out, but I'm glad we're thinking about it here. One of the people at the conference who's thought about this a lot is Victoria Floyd. Victoria is the global senior brand manager for Dove. So, Dove, the soap, and they have an ethical AI team that she leads. So, number one, I was super shocked that a soap company had an ethical AI team. I wouldn't have thought that that was necessary yet. But in fact, this Dove campaign for real beauty launched 20 years ago, and it was driven by a finding that only 2% of women considered themselves beautiful. 9 out of 10 women regularly saw harmful content online. 1 in 3 were actively considering changing their appearance because of content they had seen, even when they know it's fake, even when they know this has been doctored by filters. It leads women to want to look differently than they are. And in response to that, Dove committed to never using generative AI to replace or edit the picture of a woman who's in a Dove campaign, which is a pretty strong stance to take. What Dove did was it recognized that it wanted to make this stance, but that change doesn't happen when one company does this. And so they wanted to act as a catalyst, and they created the Real Beauty Prompt Playbook. It's open sourced. So if you Google the Dove Real Beauty Prompt Playbook, you'll find it. It's super easy to use. And what they did was they worked together with body confidence experts and engineers, and it teaches you, the client, how to write a prompt that will get you a diverse image that's not biased. So imagine what you might get if you type into ChatGPT or Gemini Nano Banano, I want to see an image of a plus size woman with freckles and curly hair who has a disability. When I type that in, the pictures I get are not this attractive human. So Dove has recognized that we are not our labels, and they have helped create algorithms that take your language and lean towards better outcomes that shift the imagery that's being created. So they've partnered with Adobe, with Pinterest on this more mindful approach to how we use technology to prompt pictures of humans. And I, for one, have been a fan of Dove for a long time. This movement just kind of solidified that for me. Victoria is a leader who's doing great work in helping other leaders understand how we center the human in the technology world. But I want to flip to some people doing the research about this. So this is Micah Katz and Laura Marciano. They're both at Harvard, but in different schools. So Mike is doing his PhD at Harvard Kennedy, and Laura works in the Chan School of Public Health. And they are using technology to measure health and happiness. They together used smartphones in a global health and happiness study, which aimed to be the very first one to track daily well-being using surveys and smartphones and smartwatches with the goal of understanding well-being, but also how technology can help us improve our well-being. So for this, their participants were wearing either a smartwatch or had a smartphone that could ping. And what was really interesting was over time, as they started looking at the data, they found that work actually ranked at the very bottom of places where we experienced positive feelings, which I don't think is surprising, especially to people who work on large remote teams. But I think it is surprising in the sense that we know relationships are one of the biggest contributors to human flourishing. And yet, relationships at work actually are negatively correlated to flourishing. Having strong social relationships is crucial for happiness and overall health. But with the unique challenge that being at work presents, people actually feel they're happier with their friends, their partners, and they feel more stress and pressure when they are in a workplace setting with colleagues, which is interesting because I would have thought kind of that offset of loneliness might have shifted that result a little bit. But for most of the teams that they were studying, being with colleagues was actually bringing your shoulders up, getting you grit your teeth rather than allowing you to do your best work. And again, it speaks to what kind of teams, but I found this a really interesting point. And then the other thing I thought was very eye-opening and something for us to consider. I think probably a lot of you saw the research that came out, I think it was about a month and a half ago, where they were talking about what are the optimal number of steps that you need to take a day. And for a long time, everybody had been aiming for 10,000 steps a day. We all have to get 10,000. And they recognized actually that for general happiness, that was high. That in order, if we're taking fitness out of the equation and just thinking for your mental health, because I'm going to move my body to feel better, around 5,000 steps a day was all you needed to do to increase your happiness. But the converse, if you are trying to reduce sadness, which is not solving the same problem, you had to take 10,000 steps. And so it's interesting that sometimes we can actually hone in very specifically on a solution when we are able to use these metrics better. So who here currently wears a device to track your health or your mood somehow? Anyone in the room? Yeah. What kind of devices are you using? Feel free just to unmute yourselves. My husband uses an Aura ring. Anybody else an Aura ring?
Apple Watch,
Apple Watch, yep.
Fitbit.
Fitbit. We see the Whoop a lot, the Garmin a lot. So
Mhm.
that's exactly what they were using um, when they were doing this tracking. And their research really, to me, spotlighted the connection between human habits that we want to either hold on to or remove from our day, and how technology can gently inform us better ways to make the habits that we want to have stick. From there, we went to a perhaps familiar face, Fred Luskin. Fred is a professor at Stanford, and he's maybe most widely known in circles like ours for his Stanford Forgiveness Project. When Fred walked out on the stage, I kind of wondered what he was doing there because I was pretty sure he was a mindfulness guy, not a technologist. And it was actually a beautiful place to end our day together because Fred reminded us of two really important things. One, that chronic partial attention, that thing where probably many of you are doing it right now. You're looking at me, but you've got another document open and you've got your phone sitting beside you with notifications popping up.
Mhm.
This type of distraction, this type of lack of one-pointed focus has actually led to a world that's quite dominated by anxiety. And stress and anxiety happen when there's an obstacle between you and something you want. So I want to pay attention to this, but there's all of these distractions. And Fred reminded the audience that when this happens, when you have chronic partial attention, we really forget to look around us and see how much beauty there is in the world. And it was especially, I think, remarkable when we were on this beautiful campus where we're sitting inside looking at a screen and we could just look outside. That we weren't in an auditorium that was closed. It had windows on every side. And so you recognized, okay, taking a moment to look around you and see the beauty in the world, whether it's looking at the Christmas tree behind you, looking at the snow outside if you're in a snowy area, looking at the birds, take more time to pay attention to the world. And then his second reminder is the language that I choose is less URL, more IRL. And this goes back very much to that comment earlier from Jeff that the highest use of AI right now is chat. We crave connection, but there is no true connection with technology. So let's go to technology for a second. People often ask me, what do I use? What's my AI tech stack? As I've learned more and more about the ethics behind the companies, but also the ethics that come to life in an AI tool that are separate than the ethics that were initially coded in. It evolves over time without our human nudges to keep it aligned to a certain type of ethics. So some of the things that I used a lot at the beginning, like ChatGPT, I don't use very much anymore. Right now, if I'm going to use some type of LLM to help me in my work, I tip to Claude. Um, I also use Perplexity when I'm looking for deep research. I find it does a better job of deep research. Recently, I've added Gemini, but I use Gemini more for connecting infographics. And then one I use every single day that if you haven't tried, I really encourage you to try is Notebook LM. It's a Google product. You find it just by typing in Google Notebook LM. It's free. You can upload a source document like a global happiness report that is hundreds and hundreds of pages. It will give you a briefing doc. It will create a podcast that you can listen to on your morning commute. It will create flashcards if you want flashcards for the statistics. It can also take multiple sources. So I can take this session uploaded to YouTube and pop it in there, and then pop in my AI for Human Flourishing framework and say, did I contradict myself anywhere based on this framework? So it is a very interesting tool. And unlike the other tools LLMs, large language models that we hear discussed, it's not going out and scraping the web. It's not getting its information from Reddit and stolen information. It's only answering questions based on the source material that you load into it. So you can actually take your own book, if you've written a book, and I know many of you have it in there and ask questions about what's the best quote that I had on this topic, or what stats did I discuss about psychological safety? And it will pull that all up for you. So, really great tool. The other tools that I use right now, I use Lovable to play with coding a little bit. It's created some really cool online assessments that I've used. It's helped me actually to code a taxonomy of skills that a child needs when they get their first phone. We, using expert research, found 200 and I think 226 skills, and then we put them into 12 developmental areas and figured out the progression. It started it, and then we took it to a group of humans who flipped them around a bit, but it was a beautiful way to begin. And I am laughing that I'm saying that I code things because I've never had a coding lesson in my life. And you would not want to use Lovable to make something that you publish and then think you're going to take out to the world because it could be filled with mistakes. But as a source tool for me to be able to look at this information and play with it differently, it works really well. I also recommend, if we have actual coders in the room, Hugging Face. It's open source, free, and filled with wonderful things that you can use. And then finally, many of you in your work may need to look at people and culture data, engagement surveys, and such. And I've used Julius to help me when I've had really large data sets. It helps me to make sense of it. And Julius is a product that sits on top of either Claude or ChatGPT or Perplexity, and it helps you to take a large set of Excel data and then actually talk through questions around, tell me what the teams are saying about psychological safety. Well, let's only look at this business unit. Well, let's only look at this business unit under this manager. And so it's a very useful tool in that setting. We've had a lot of me time. And so what I'm going to do now is stop sharing. And I actually want us to have some time to talk in smaller groups. So we're going to put you into small breakouts. And what you're going to discuss in the breakout, which I think I'd love you, first of all, to introduce yourselves. Part of the magic of this is meeting the other humans. I want you to consider what your tech stack is that you're using right now, and then do that deeper dive into, is this actually helping me to become a better human? Or the converse, because sometimes people are like, I don't even know how to answer that question. But one that people can easily answer is, what technology am I using that distracts me from doing my human work? So I'm going to give you about 5 minutes in your breakouts. Karen, if you can make those for me, and just have a conversation about what are you using and how is it impacting you? Do you feel better after you've used it? Do you feel worse? And we'll come back in about 5 minutes and continue from there.
Right.
Tamara, I have to jump at 10 to, so if I don't see you again, thank you. This was great. Karen, I didn't get a room to jump to, or
I'm
you to
seeing
move.
that. What do we do about that? Who do we have left? Well, why don't we use this as a room? Amrit, are you available?
And, and I
Yeah.
have to jump in
I'm
5 minutes, so we can
okay.
have a quick.
Yeah, I was just noticing for some reason, it does it automatically, but you didn't get assigned. I'm sorry. I don't know how to manually assign you. Do you know?
No, because
Okay.
usually
Well,
it just happens, which is so
yes.
weird.
Well,
I know I joined late, maybe. I don't know.
oh, I don't know. Well, anyway, here we are. We can talk about the tech stuff, and I also would love to hear about your research.
Oh yeah, so we actually just finished that analysis. So I have a World Trade Center health program funded study that's looking at the mental health of responders. And so one of the analyses we looked at was the importance of social support as being a protective factor for developing mental health conditions in the years after.
Mhm.
Um, so PTSD, anxiety, and depression, and colleagues at work were by far the strongest,
Really?
especially too if for females that had children. And I think, there's like some dynamics there that people rely on people in their workplace so much more and draw support from them so much more than we actually realize. And that was a really unique situation because they were all kind of, in a really traumatic experience together. Um, so like, there's some framing around that, some context, but yeah, we're just
Yeah.
writing the paper now. But yeah, really interesting, something we didn't expect.
Well, it does make sense. I mean, and particularly you think like first responders in that industry, um, people they're sort of tribal. I mean, we're all tribal,
Hmm.
but
Yes, yeah. So
the
yeah,
communities seem
we specifically focused in on the non-uniformed responders as well, because
ah
they made up nearly more than 50% of the people that were there. So they were like the construction workers that were actually scrabbling through the rabble, the utility workers that were turning off the electric, making sure it was safe before the first responders went in. So often they were the first to see what was down
okay.
there.
Hmm.
Um, Journalists, so a lot of other people as well as, the first responders. But yeah, it's actually more powerful for those non-uniformed responders than the responders. And I think it's because responders were sent in as groups, as teams that knew each other, whereas the non-uniform responders didn't so much. So were probably drawn, which that's what was kind of surprising because they often didn't know the people they were working alongside. And the fact
So
that that
they're
was,
so their colleagues at work, that was the factor, even if they weren't doing the responding together.
yeah, so it's kind of complex. There's a lot in this
Yeah.
analysis. So um, there was kind of two parts. There was the colleagues that they were working with on site, that was
Yes.
protective, and their colleagues in their
Yeah.
workplace was protective as well. So yeah,
Both.
uh,
Both.
yeah. So,
Okay.
but anyway,
Well, and the on-site together would make sense because that's really what trauma
mhm.
bonding is.
Yes, yes, yes,
Mhm.
exactly.
Fascinating. Well, maybe you can share that with us sometime.
Yeah, yeah, I'd love to at some point. Yeah, when
Okay.
it's publishable, and well, it's publishable, but when it's
Okay.
published,
When it's
then
published, okay.
we
Yeah.
can there's kind of a lot in that actual study that we've been looking at, and we've been really focusing in on the non-uniform responders because they often haven't received as much attention, and they really still struggle when we see that kind of in, current response to any kind of, hurricane or, you know, all the awful stuff that's happening in the world.
Yeah.
That non-uniform responders often don't receive the same supports, and often their mental health conditions and diagnoses afterwards are far higher than first responders, because access to healthcare, those sorts of things,
Yeah.
recognition that it actually is something that they should be receiving treatment for is like a compensable kind of
Mhm.
claim, versus like first responders, it's just blanket. If you get some sort of PTSD diagnosis that's linked to something, like that goes through really, really quickly. Um,
Yes.
so, there's a lot of different stuff, but we've seen that finding in some of our other research as well, that often work relationships are more important, especially for single parents and people that are separated from that, like single parents or divorced, separated. Um,
Mhm.
Personal relationships become so much more important at work. And how do
Mhm.
you build that, especially now that we're moving more towards remote teams? How do you still build that social connection so that people are still getting the
Yeah.
support that they need from their current networks? Um,
Mhm.
so that, that whole, that whole setting is changing, and the way
It's
we even experience. social connection is changing.
Yes.
Anyway.
Well, I'll bring us back to, I'm going to close the rooms in a second, but from a personal standpoint, I was on site in August with, there was a school shooting. I'm in Minneapolis, and there was a school shooting. And so I was on site with all the families for 10 days, me and, a lot of other volunteers. But that notion of like lack of resource and support, that those of us that were all there was no support for us.
Yeah.
And that's, but it's vicarious trauma. It's
Yeah.
that is a real thing. So I find it
Yeah, we
fascinating.
have one of our researchers, her whole research area is on vicarious trauma. And even for like she's done a lot of work even in just the healthcare space where you think those people are receiving the supports that they need, like they work in healthcare, but they tend to be carers themselves and don't
Yeah.
feel like feel like they should be able to handle this themselves because they're a healthcare professional. And so,
Totally.
yeah. And also it
Yeah.
can
And as a psychologist, that's how I felt. I should be
and
able to handle it.
if anything, if they get diagnosed with anything, it can impact their licensing as well. So, the big push to get all of that removed from physicians licensing, nurses licensing, so it's not a tick box they have to disclose that I have a mental health
Right.
problem.
Yeah.
So
Okay, we better. I could talk
yeah,
about this all day.
yes, yes.
Thank you.
Anyway,
Thank you. We're
okay,
gonna go
this is great.
back to the
All right,
room. Okay, take
see
care.
you in the new year.
Okay, yes. Happy
Bye.
holidays. Hi, Michael.
Hey, am I early or what's happened?
Oh, were you in a breakout room?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know why everybody doesn't. I think you have to opt back in. It will close out in 20 seconds if people don't manually do it. Oh, you were in a room though,
Oh,
right?
I was in a room. Yeah, I was about to speak, so that's why I was like, I didn't hit anything.
Oh, weird. I don't know. It jumped you back in here?
Yeah,
Oh, shoot. Well, I can listen.
no worries.
How is the discussion?
No, it was interesting. It was four people from different places, different experiences. Oh, what's this now?
Cool.
Welcome back, everybody. I know our group had a fabulous conversation, and I hope you all felt the same. I'm going to continue moving forward because I've got more than 5 minutes worth to cover in the next 5 minutes. So I'm going to go at a little faster speed, and my apologies if it feels rushed. But I really value those breakout times more than anything in these conversations. So moving on to how does this impact me at work? So if you want to create something that you could get a patent on, don't use ChatGPT to ideate this with you. Don't use it for your first draft, and don't use it at all for conception. If you do that, you will not be able to get a patent on your product. You can use it for editing, for tracking, or for enforcement of a patent, looking for code you've written or something that you own. That's a great use of AI technology. What about copyrights? Generally, you can't copyright things that are generated through AI prompts because if you look at this one, create a professional photo of a bespectacled cat. Both the left image and the right image are things that came from that prompt. If it's not something that you're going to get the same thing every time, you can't copyright it. So that's the way that in the United States and in Canada right now, this is working. However, if you own something that's copyrighted, like the image on the left, which is a young cyborg woman with roses coming out of her head, and you pop it in and say, now, specifically